สวัสดีครับ
สวัสดีค่ะ Good evening. Welcome to Thai PBS English News Service. I'm Rungtip Chonapalai.
And I'm Supachon Klinsuwan, and we're still on the issue of the big waves down south. And today, locals in the southern province of Chumphon is asking the government to build wave barriers so that they will not be severely hit by the massive waves as if they were hit last weekend. However, academics in Songkhla also suggested that constructing coastal structures is a significant cause of erosion. The owner of one of the houses on the beach in Lamma district in Chumphon says he has never before in 40 years seen waves as high as 5 meters hit his house like they did last weekend. Locals admit they are all scared by the situation, but since they have nowhere else to go, they will have to fix their houses and continue on with their daily lives in the area. They also ask officials to create a wave barrier to prevent waves from destroying their houses again.
Meanwhile, Somboon Phonphinnetpong, a marine engineering specialist from Songkhla Nakarin University, told Thai PBS that the reason many beaches along the coast of Songkhla are being eroded is because of the permanent structures which are built there by the state.
He says that these structures destroy the ecological balance, especially when the natural movement of sand is disturbed. Furthermore, areas which do not have any wave barriers can also be affected in this chain reaction. The east coast of Thailand's southern region has at least 14 major man-made wave barriers.
The last cabinet meeting for 2011 today saw a 1.1 trillion baht chunk of public debt move to be under the responsibility of the Bank of Thailand. Meanwhile, the government approved a 350 billion baht budget to prepare the country for the future floods. The 350 billion baht budget requested by the Strategic Committee for Water Resources Management went past as expected. The source of fund is likely to be borrowed from financial institutions within the country. The short and long-term plans of the committee will include planting forests, building dams and reservoirs, permanent dikes, as well as revising the city planning to cope with natural waterways.
The cabinet has assigned Thira Wongsamut, Minister of Agriculture, to conduct a full-scale research of the agricultural areas affected by the floods and provide suggestions of how each area should be restored. A central water management agency, which will work in the long run, will also be set up by the ministry as well. Still in finance, Deputy Prime Minister Kittirat Naranong said that the cabinet approved in principle that the Financial Institution Development Fund, or FIDF, transfer its 1.1 trillion baht debt to the Bank of Thailand.
Following the 1997 financial crisis, the government of the day set up the Financial Institution Development Fund, or FIDF, to shore up distressed financial institutions. The FIDF has amassed debt in excess 1 trillion baht. Kittirat said that the central bank holds massive international reserves and is capable of managing debt on this scale. However, such a transfer is likely to meet with heated criticism.
The servicing of this massive debt will build up saving struggling banks after the 1997 crash and is now part of the annual fiscal budget. However, it is thought by some that in principle that the interest payments were not part of the budget expenditure and the country's room for finance water management infrastructure would be expanded, Dr. Rungtip.
However, the cabinet ordered the Finance Ministry, the Bank of Thailand and National Economic and Social Development Board to jointly comment on a proposal deal with the debts.
Right. Meanwhile, the Federation of Thai Industries, otherwise known as the FTI in the area, anticipate that full production will resume during the first quarter of 2012.
Well, the Federation of the Thai Industry, there are more than 600 factories in 5 industrial zones in Ayutthaya affected by the floods. Of the 600, approximately 160 produce parts for the vehicle industry. All 160 ceased production due to the floods. This is having a severe knock-on effect to the main vehicle assembly plants in Thailand and abroad, who are dependent on the supply of parts from Thai factories.
This caused auto production to fall to the lowest level in 13 years. Even though many parts manufacturers have attempted to resume production, capacity is still only at 10% of what it should be. However, the FTI expects full production of parts to have resumed by April next year. The auto parts industry is valued at an estimated 160 billion baht annually. Honda Automobiles Thailand in Rojana Industrial Park were forced to scrap 1,055 flood-damaged cars. They estimate it will take up to 1 month to destroy the cars because some parts must be carefully removed and disposed of through licensed recycling factories. Aluminum, plastic, and wheel assemblies, as well as rubber parts, which are still viable, will be returned to the manufacturing process. The steel will be melted down and reused.
Bangladesh district is one of the largest in Nakhon Pathom province, and a great deal of it still under flood water. There are around 1,200 people in the district still facing considerable difficulties leading their lives.
Right, not to mention that the cold weather has already come into to this area as well. Meanwhile, many more have had their daily lives changed and taking up fishing instead of farming. It's been almost a month that this resident of Bang Leng district has had to stay in this stilted house. She has to keep her clothes and belongings of the 5 people in her family in one room, and that includes the rice cooker and stove to cook for her family as well. This room has become her temporary kitchen, and there is no toilet for her to use. She says that she is still struggling, and lack of a toilet is the biggest problem. Children in the area have to use a floating toilet at the village headsman's house. This is the worst flood that she has seen in her lifetime. Some of the people are still using boats for transportation in this cold weather. Flood water still remains in this area longer than other areas. People here are now lacking income and are still unsure whether the water will be gone by the 15th of January or not.
And coming up now, as if dealing with too much water during the floods was not enough, now people who live in the flooded area are having trouble with unusually high water bills.
Right, because some people receive bills of over 5,000 baht, which is as much as the government's compensation, Dr. Runtip, but 5,000 baht in water bills for the last month, even though they didn't even stay in their houses during the floods, and there is no apparent damage to the water pipes. Normally, their average water bills are approximately 200 baht per month, but this family here is paying much more this month. The Metropolitan Waterworks Authority, or MWA, believes damage to the sanitary system is the cause of the high billing problem. The higher amounts preparing on December's water bill comes with details of water usage from the MWA and indicates that the amount consumed in December's billing cycle is up to 10 times higher than usual. A stunned Wasan Thamakul, a pharmacy owner in Mueang Thong Niwet 1 village in Laksi area, said his normal monthly bill was only about 200 baht. And in any case, his pharmacy has been closed for 2 months.
This also happened to the Pathum Si Adwood household in the same village. Their family had just come back home last night from the evacuation due to the floods. She has received about 1,787 baht water bill, while normally her average bill would be around 400 baht per month. Meanwhile, the wing commander Suphapon Plaimat, who lives in a house with her 14 dogs, confirmed that normally her water bill is no more than 200 baht. But the current month, after the flood, she received a huge 5,000 baht water bill. Most people in this village are doubting that the bills are accurate because they have checked their equipment and there appears to be nothing wrong.
The ThaiPBS news team asked the MWA for an explanation. They confirmed that the billing amount is calculating from reading the water meter. They believe that these high water billings are caused by 2 factors. One is the pipe is leaking, and the other is a problem with the sanitary system. Most of the complaints about the water bills are from Don Mueang, Laksi, Bang Khae, and Bang Bua Thong areas, which suffered high levels of floodwater in the areas which they stayed for quite a long time. The MWA suggested that people who have received an unusually high water bill should ask the MWA in their area to recheck the system.
If they find damage to the water pipe, they will cancel the extra usage fee and will allow them until January 31st, 2012 to pay the bill.
Thailand is not the only country suffering from the mayhem brought on by heavy flooding, but Tropical Storm Washi has now left the Philippine Islands and without leaving flooding or destruction in its wake. Tropical Storm Washi brought heavy rains, overflowing rivers, and flash floods to the southern Philippines for 3 full days in mid-December. It washed away whole villages and riverbanks. Recovering the bodies of those swept up in the flood have been hampered by the fatigue of rescue workers. The death toll rose to 1,249 more than a week after the disaster struck, with officials expecting more victims to be found. The situation is so chaotic that Civil Defense Chief Benito Ramos said his National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council would no longer count the missing, as no one could give reliable figures on how many people were unaccounted for.
But Ramos told AFP he has sure that the death toll would continue rising as more bodies were still being retrieved from the sea off the southern island of Mindanao or found trapped beneath fallen logs and mud. Cagayan de Oro and Iligan and bore the brunt of the disaster. More than 776,000 people were displaced by the storm, and almost 55,000 are still huddled in crowded evacuation centers. The government has said it will set up 10 cities in safe areas to temporarily house and evacuees, perhaps for as long as 3 months, until more permanent shelters can be erected.
The health secretary said the government was also preparing a scheme to pay households unaffected by the floods to host families who had lost their homes. The secretary said that there had been no major disease outbreaks at the evacuation centers, but potable water remained in short supply for thousands of people. A low-pressure area brought new floods to the central and southern Philippines on Monday, forcing thousands more to flee their homes, and the Disaster Council is adding that they're doing their best to take care of the situation.
As New Year is coming up, the Department of Disaster Prevention launched a total of 9 measures to curb any possible violence or accidents during the New Year festivals. Cleaning up the streets is one of the measures the police are undertaking to ensure no suspect packages can be concealed in the immediate vicinity of popular New Year activities in the city of Bangkok. Authorities are also inspecting and servicing the 400 closed-circuit TV cameras around the Ratchaprasong area, the location of the capital's biggest countdown gathering.
Police report that no intelligence has been received so far about any planned acts of terror during the New Year festivities. The 9 security measures set out by the Department of Disaster Prevention to curb the potential problems in the new year include strict enforcement of law, mobile medical units, and the setting up of frequent random checkpoints in the city's roads to catch speeding motorists and those who have been drinking alcohol and stupidly still decide to drive. Additionally, the wearing of helmets will also be a requirement for all motorcyclists.
The government aims to decrease the death and accident toll by at least 5% when compared to last year. Though even if the campaign is successful, that would still mean 340 people will lose their lives during the next 7 to 10 days. 2011's death toll was 358, with a further 3,750 hurt in accidents. The Army has also announced it will offer 400 to 500 military police to help to prevent drunk driving.
And that wraps up tonight's edition of Thai PBS English News Service. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Supachon Glinsawan.
I'm Rung Tip Chonapalai. สวัสดีครับ